Okay, here's another question from Facebook Live. How does an amp determine an opponent's range?
How does a what?
An amateur determine an opponent's range. So if you're new and you're trying to figure out how to...
Sure. So here's the thing. Like, when I started playing, this term didn't even exist. Range. Does everyone know what a range means? Raise your hand if you don't know what a range is. Anyone not know what a range is? You all know? Okay. So, yeah, range... Well, man, I don't have to explain it then if you all know. Jeez. I didn't know until someone explained it to me. Back in the old days, we used to look at hands like this. We go, well, if he's got it, he probably got this. If he don't got it, well, he bluffed him, so who cares what he got? So either he got that or I got him. It was as simple as that. That's how we broke down hands. Today, there's a much more advanced, much more sophisticated way of doing that. For you as an amateur, I would say the easiest and most effective way to do that would be just pay attention. Really pay attention to what your opponents are turning over, right? So if you see a guy raise in first position, and then he wins the pot, and you see that he had 6-4 diamonds, okay? So now what do you know about his range from under the gun? It's wide, right? So that he'll play a lot more hands. So now in the future, if he raises under the gun again, you don't necessarily think this guy has to have aces or kings. So if you have ace-queen, maybe you play against him. Maybe there's a different player where you've played with him for 3 days, the only times he ever raised under the gun, he showed aces and kings. It's okay, that's a different kind of range. If you have ace-queen against him, maybe you're not doing so good against that guy. So first and foremost, I would say just pay attention and then focus on the betting patterns. It's very difficult to answer that question past that. How to figure out somebody's range is kind of what the hardest part of poker is, right? Next question over there. So the question is, online poker versus live poker, does your play differ a lot? And I'm going to say, for most players, the answer, like for most online guys who transition to live, they don't play much different at all. They do the exact same thing. For me, it's very different, because I came from the live world. I didn't come from online. So when I play online, I try to focus on what's available, the fundamentals, right? Making sure I'm playing the mathematically correct way. Making sure that, I'm paying attention to betting patterns. When I play live, there's an added bonus, right? So when I play live, of being able to see the person. So when I play live, I play a lot more hands than I would online, because I feel like I can get away with it. Even though I know, okay, 6-4 spades, this is not mathematically right. Like, I shouldn't be playing this hand, but I'll still play it, because I have a feeling I can outmaneuver my opponents based on their body language, their physical tells, or things that I can do to manipulate them. So if you're a beginning amateur player, I would say that you shouldn't play much different at all. If you're playing online or you're playing live, you should play the same. If you become really good, at picking up on live reads and live tells and things like that, now you can start to take advantage of that. But overall, I would say not much difference.
I'm going to give you a question of my own. Name the 3 things that somebody who has only played online, name the 3 mistakes they're going to make that are going to hurt them the most when they first start playing live.
So first and foremost, when you play online, you have the benefit of seeing, like, oh, this guy has 5,500 in chips. Nice and neat. It's very, very easy to see. When you're playing live, you have to learn how to eyeball chip stacks, right? It's quite annoying to ask the guy every street, go, how much do you have? How much do you have? How much do you have? So one of the biggest mistakes I think that online players make when they transition to live is just not being able to tell how many chips are around the table. And as you guys know, that's really, really important. When you're playing a hand, kind of having an idea of your opponent's stack size. I would say, the top 3. That's my top 1.
Okay, the mechanical mistakes. What mechanical mistakes do you see amateurs make, like not announcing raise size or the 1 chip rule, anything like that?
Yeah, I would say that the safest thing for an online guy is try to focus on, doing the same thing every time, right? Don't be goofy and sloppy with things. But also another one is, before you throw your chip in the pot and you're raising, you got to say raise first. So as a habit, when you're throwing in a chip, let's say you want to bet 4,700 and you throw in a 5K chip, don't just say 47, say 4,700. Be very, very clear, and that way you won't fall into any traps of getting, making this sort of a technical error that could cost you. In the high roller, this is funny. Dan Shack The blinds were 500, 1,000. Okay, he just sat down at the table. You know, he's kind of a clumsy guy. He sat down at the table. Very first hand, he threw out 3 chips to make it 3,000. Oops, they were 25K chips. So he made it 75,000, right? So now everyone at the table's thinking, what the heck? This is a great spot, right? So everyone's looking at their cards, but then they look over at Dan, and Dan's sitting there, cool as a cucumber. So everyone's like, I don't know, man. If he screwed that up and didn't have a good hand, he might be a little more upset. So a couple people did have good hands, but they folded, and then Dan Shack turned up pocket aces. He's made 75,000 by accident. So yeah, try to avoid that. I mean, this isn't a $100,000 tournament. You shouldn't see this in a $20 tournament. Just so you know, if you guys want to play in the 100K, we have players that make mistakes like that too. Any questions? There we go.
There we go.
Following up on the topic of maybe money, promotional stuff like winning goes and things attracting more recreational players. What about like the live experience itself? Like you mentioned the hoodies, the stalling, the sunglasses. Are there things that can be done to a live poker screen, rules, regulations, or other things to make that back to the poker?
Yeah. So the question is essentially, what can we do to make live poker more fun? What's within our control to do? And poker's always been somewhat like of a self-policing game. If a guy's being a jerk, the rest of the table lets him know, and we try to correct that behavior. It's not really a rule, it's just implicit, right? Now, one of the things we can do that I think would really help going forward, and we do this in a lot of the high roller events. I play at Aria. Occasionally we have these $25,000 buy-ins. We play with a shot clock. A shot clock, first and foremost, speeds up the play, which is complaint number 1, I think, for most people, right? You don't want to sit there and watch a guy think for 2-3 minutes every time. It's just not that fun. Outside of that, I don't know that there's a lot we can do, so if you're a professional player, you're young, you're not really that social, you're there to make money, you don't really have to talk, We can't exactly implement rules that says, you need to be entertaining. Go take comedy lessons from Kevin Hart. He'll be here later today, right? We just have to, let people be people. I would say the biggest thing we could focus on is if there's anybody being abusive with their behavior, in terms of being rude or mocking people, potentially we could give penalties for that. There already are rules like that, but they're rarely enforced because I haven't seen that as being a huge problem. I would say that overall the younger generation is relatively respectful. Their only issue maybe is not being engaging, right? So for some of you that want to make the table more fun, just do what you would do at a party. Ask questions, right? Where are you from? What do you do for a living? How long are you here? Like normal people do in real life. Sure. We did. So the question was, have I ever seen an environment where they didn't allow sunglasses? I helped create a show called the PokerStars Big Game, which some of you may remember, which was a really fun show. One of the rules that I said was super important for this show, since it's on TV and we're paying for it, no sunglasses, no hat. There was only one guy in the history of the show that was like, I'm wearing sunglasses. And his name was Phil Hellmuth. And I said, no, you have to grow up. And you have to look at us with no hiding. So we forced him to take his sunglasses off. Okay, so the question is, essentially, small pocket pairs. How do we want to play these in this tournament? Early, middle, and late. You asked for middle, but I can sort of give you the whole gamut of all of them, right? Typically with these small pocket pairs, early on, these are pretty good hands, because if you're up against a guy with the aces who doesn't know how to, divorce them, right? And you have pocket fours and it comes 9-6-4, you might win yourself a really big pot. The great news about those small pairs, unlike the aces, with the aces, you lose a lot of big pots. With the trips, with the small pairs, you don't, right? If you play a pair of threes and it comes king, 8, 5, you're not going to go broke on that hand. It's rare that you're going to flop a set, 3 of a kind, and lose, right? It's very, very rare. So I like playing those hands early and middle. The key factor to consider with those small pairs is your stack size, right? So if you're down to just 15, 16, 17 big blinds, with a hand like a pair of fives or a pair of fours, if somebody raises, you could consider going all in, or you could be the first one going all in yourself and hoping to just steal the blinds, because that hand does play pretty well. You know, if you get called by ace, queen, ace, jack, okay, so you're in a coin flip. As for, he also mentioned limping. I'm going to say this, okay, to all of you that are playing, if you're new, don't do it, okay? If you're going to play a hand, if it's not good enough to raise, don't play, okay? Either fold or raise. Don't. The only times you should be calling is if somebody else raised and you have, let's say, king, queen of spades, pocket nines, you can call. But if you're the first one into the pot, raise. The only exception is if it's folded around and you're in the small blind against the big blind. If the big blind is a pro or a good player who's very loose, if you raise and he calls all the time, you're just making the pot bigger for him, okay? You're putting yourself in a worse situation because now, you know, you're making the pot bigger and you're out of position. When you're out of position, you want the pots smaller. When you're in position, you want the pots bigger. But overall, as a general rule, don't just look at like jack nine of spades and go, well, I call. No, raise with it. If you get re-raised, fine. You know, you can throw it away. Same thing with fours, fives, sixes, all those types of hands. Be the aggressor, right? And then reevaluate if somebody else calls or re-raises.